Here we go. Hey, everyone. Yeah, welcome. Welcome to our webinar. Thank you all for attending and giving us a little bit of your time. We just wanted to have a conversation and kind of talk about a few of the things that a lot of us are dealing with right now in terms of the challenge of doing remote learning. And for some of us, that's an extended period of time. Some of that's an unknown period of time. And so just trying to kind of dig into some of the ways that digital portfolios can really help support and be a really great thing into that remote learning plan. So thank you all for attending. I'm really excited to introduce Nancy Garvey. She's the Director of Digital Learning at Coppell ISD in Coppell, Texas. And she's a dear friend of mine, and I just look up to her so much. Her and her team are just super smart and brilliant and innovative, and they're just really a great resource. And they're really, I just say you guys are really authentic and real into the things that you guys are doing, and you're facing this this time just like everybody else is. And so thought we could have a little conversation with you and find out, what are you guys doing? You're also pretty familiar with Bulb, and so what advice can you guys you give to anyone who's looking at trying to find some solutions, especially doing some things quickly? So kind of kick it off, Nancy. You know, we were, some of you guys heard our intro as we're just kind of chit-chatting. You might have seen Nancy's daughter come in, and we were just kind of talking about how all of us are really in this time right now that is challenging, where a lot of us are teachers and whatnot are working from home, and they have their kids at home, and so you're trying to do learning at home and do your job from home. And just everything in world is just feeling a little bit unsettled. And so how do we deal with all of that and also try to make sure that we extend that learning and make the most of that time? So Nancy, just kind of kicking it off to you. And I know we kind of talked about what kind of advice would you give to leadership right now as they're starting to plan and really think about digital learning in that remote sense? Do you have any advice or some things that you think that they can consider?
Sure. You know, as going through it right now has been probably, you know, we've talked, my team and I've talked about this, probably for my role and for the work that I do, like probably some of the most, this is going to sound weird, I know, but some of the most exciting time for us in the scenario of helping educators through an authentic experience. So you don't get any more authentic than this, right? Like when we're talking about distance learning and online learning and using digital tools for learning and connecting and like all the things that we want to teach our kids how to do, we are literally have been thrown into almost the perfect authentic experience. The learning that's happening right now within our district is incredible because you have to, no matter what, no matter whether you like, I don't want to say you believe or not, or like this is, you believe it because it's happening, like you're physically doing it. And so some of the advice that I would have is like, for us, like right now we're jumping in and we're looking at every time something new comes up, my team is they're just already thinking about how they can support their educators and learners. So like right now we are developing the schedules and how much time we're going to spend on things and the resources we're going to use and communicating. And I think what it comes down to is for us is simplicity and taking the stress away from them as much as possible. So finding any resources that they're either familiar with, that they've used in their classroom, that our district supports, but also if that's not an opportunity at that moment, like let's say you need something, but your district doesn't have a platform for it, finding the most simple tool that is something that educators can spend some time learning, but it's not going to be a complicated thing that's happening. Like we just had a conversation about which video conferencing tool to use, and my team lead and I were talking like, okay, we have this one and it does all these things, but then we have this one and it's a little simpler and it can get them online faster. Which one do we go with? And honestly, right now, my answer is different than if I had time to plan it. So like if I had time to sit down and really come up with a good PL plan that brings in master educators and things like that, like I might have chosen a different tool. But right now in the system that we're in, the idea is to get the teachers what they need as soon as possible because our kids are waiting for them.
Yeah, I think that's really great, that simplicity message, and knowing that this is an opportunity that some of these teachers are being kind of forced into this digital, they're forced into tools that they might feel uncomfortable with. So you talked about having that district support, but then also that simplicity of tool. And then hopefully maybe out of all of this that you guys go into, you know, the next school year and stuff is you kind of have a basis platform and then you can take and run and maybe use some of those other tools that then take and dig deeper into some of those other opportunities too. So
100%. And so like where we're lucky is that we implemented Bulb last year and have been working in like our second year of implementation. And we've been using it and teachers are kind of getting familiar with it. And you know, there's that implementation curve of the types of educators, the ones that are going to jump right on, the hesitant ones. And now that we're in this space for however many weeks we're in, it gives us this opportunity, which will never present itself again unless there's another coronavirus.
Don't say that. That's not allowed to be said.
Right? But it gives us an opportunity for them to, in the midst of this online learning, authentically learn something that's going to help help their learners in a space where, like, if you were face to face all the time, in their minds, the need may not be as big as what they're seeing now. And so if we are able to authentically answer the questions and authentically help them move forward, I truly believe that as we go along, these things are going to be instilled in them. And next year, we're going to be able to go even deeper and even farther because we were in this authentic experience learning how to use it. Like, it couldn't be any more authentic than, hey, snap, you're no longer at your school and you have 150 kids or 23 kids staring at you ready for learning. What are you going to do? Well, if all of your strategies were at face-to-face, we've got some learning to do, but it's authentic. And they're not going to be like, well, I'm never going to use this. Like, it's just, yes, you are. And you're going to use it tomorrow. And so I don't know where we started with this, but I just want to say, like, it couldn't be more exciting and stressful all at the same time. And to say that is find things that take away the stress and they can move right into the learning. And I think that's going to be the biggest key, is what's going to get them right into the learning and not spending hours trying to figure out something in order to make it work.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And I've seen some in our chats, people are talking about how parents are feeling all this too. So we have our teachers and our students and our parents and all of this, and trying to be able to use those tools and kind of get right into learning. One of the things that you and I were talking about earlier was maybe even being able to use Bulb as a great place to be journaling and doing some quick writes and things to just help process what's going on in our world, and for our students to be able to express that. I know you were kind of talking about how important that looks like for the future, so I'd love for you to share with the group what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, we were talking about selfishly my son and other kids and learners, and how we can take this moment to help them process like what's going on in the world. Like right now, what a primary source we have in all of our students in this country. And for them to be able to write down their ideas and their thoughts and be able to process through what they're thinking live, or, you know, video blog themselves talking about, you know, like from day one, like I was talking about my son and how excited he is that school is, you know, is closed right now. But like as the weeks go on and as the learning happens and that he's like his social interactions change and all the things that are happening, like for him to be able to talk about that and those feelings and be able to later, like in 20 years, look back and be like, that was a crazy time and I lived it. And here's how I was feeling during it. And here's what was happening day to day. It's going to be priceless, like 100% priceless. And to be able to encourage kids to do that. And I don't know if this is a place for me to talk about what our team is talking about doing, which is creating like reflection templates, so that we're providing consistency across the whole district in what those reflections can look like, and what, and taking that again away from the educator. Like, we don't need 1,100 educators creating a Bulb template. If we can create that from the district perspective, we're going to start seeing aligned thinking, and we're going to start seeing equity in what they're doing and processing. And oh my gosh, like I can't wait for even 5 years from now, even when my son is a senior, he's in 2nd grade now, to be able to reflect back on those 2 weeks, 4 weeks, however many weeks it is that we're learning from home, like what that felt like and the changes that came up because of it is just going to be incredible.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think your advice about you guys, you have a district team that kind of has the ability to create some templates and help teachers provide those resources directly to them, so it makes it easy for them. Something else that's great for our group to know is that we have a library, and we actually have built some really great reflection and some quick writes and some things. So even if you don't have a district team, like Nancy's team that's writing some of those reflective templates, we have some that are available to be able to use immediately too with your teachers, because getting students writing and reflecting helps keep that emotional health. And like you said, gosh, that's going to be such a great thing for them to be able to look back at and to be able to have that diary. As we were talking about, I mean, what a great relation for like kids who have read like the Diary of Anne Frank and some of those other memoirs and say, hey, these were kids that were your age, that were doing what you guys are doing now, and, you know, in tough situations and something that's a historic situation.
Like your voice counts. Like,
yeah, and your voice does count, and your perspective of what's going on really matters. And so I think that's a great way of like a simple step to just work that into a daily schedule to say, okay, let's leave a little bit of time for some reflective journaling as a part of that. So I think that's great.
I will say also, we'll share anything that we create too with you guys. So like anyone's able to, that's what the beauty of templates is. Like one person has this great mind and they build this processing thought document, and then now every kid gets to benefit from that. So we're happy to share that for sure. Something I was thinking about while you were talking would be like another thing that we're looking at, and I know that I don't know how many of y'all are from Texas, and I don't know how many decisions have been made across different states, but we just found out yesterday that they've decided that we're not doing the STAR this year. And so we're talking about
state testing. That's your state testing.
Yes.
Yep.
And so we're talking about how do we continue to show evidence of learning. Okay, first of all, we're thankful. Okay, so let's just put that there. But also, like, we're talking about community accountability and how do we show that evidence of learning. And this is, again, when kids are at home and there's different things happening and, you know, they're learning whatever the content is, to be able to show their process of learning through a Bulb page and be able to turn that into their educator not only creates a story for them to kind of see where their learning went and how it went along, but also provides a story for the district and a way to be able to hold ourselves accountable to make sure our kids are learning and to be able to showcase to the state or to whoever's going to ask, like, so what happened? Like, what were your kids doing in learning? Like, we will have amazing evidence through Bulb.
Yeah, I think that's so important because I think a lot of states and districts are required to put together that plan. But to actually have the evidence of how that plan was executed and, you know, what those students really are able to accomplish in there, I think is a really powerful way to be forward thinking and the students really creating this portfolio and using Bulb for the evidence of that learning. I think that's great. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, I was just thinking about, like, we were talking earlier about our process. So we went off on spring break before this kind of the heavy hit. And our K-5 learners don't take their devices home yet. So they're all sitting in classrooms. And so one of the very first things that we did was start having conversations with parents about picking up their devices, but some parents aren't comfortable with like coming out of, you know, social distancing. We're trying to set everything up. But one of the great things that I was just thinking about with Bulb is that it's very mobile friendly. So if they don't pick up their iPad or their tablet or their computer, and you know, they have their parent's phone or they have something else, like that's one cool thing about Bulb is that it is easy to use. Like I found myself in my master's class uploading and changing pages on my phone as I was thinking about something, like I was sitting on the couch, and to be perfectly honest, just too lazy to get up and get my iPad or my MacBook. And I was able to make those changes just right on my phone. I've been able to view my sons from the phone. Like, so that's another really good thing, that if y'all are thinking about like, okay, not everyone has a device at home, what does this look like? Bulb is a great place where they can snap photos straight from their phone of their experiences. Maybe they worked on some sort of, you know, paperwork where they were doing math, and now we can just capture that and be able to talk about it in the app and be able to kind of like create a space right from whatever device they have when they're in their houses.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Nancy, because I think our schools are facing that, where they may have the ability of trying to get devices home to students, and some of these districts are doing a huge, momentous task and doing a great job at it, but there's still the reality that, you know, kids are going to have various devices at home. And a lot of times, especially for our older kids, they have cell phones and they're used to being there on that platform digitally. And I know you and I have talked about this before, but a lot of times they don't see their digital devices as like creation and learning devices. And so what a great way to be able to, now learning's kind of done at home, and it's like, hey, even on that phone that you're on and you're Snapchatting and doing all these other things, like you can use that phone for creation and learning as well, and starting to kind of attach that stigma to it in a really fun and interesting way. And I know we've heard a lot from our students that they love to create on Bulb on their phones and mobile devices. And so that creates kind of another power. And if you have multiple kids at home and they're sharing devices, that just opens up a couple more devices that they might be able to do some of their work on. So that's great too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Nancy and I will continue to talk, but please feel free. There's a chat at the bottom of the Zoom meeting. And I know I've been seeing some great chats coming in so far, but if you have any comments or questions for Nancy or myself, please feel free to chat them, because we'd love to be able to spend a little bit of time answering any specific questions that you guys have with us.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you have a question for me? I was just
No, go.
Okay. One of the things that we're talking about, and I think that it can be anyone, it doesn't have to be a digital learning coach or my job role or anything, but like one of the things that we're doing right now with all of this stay-at-home stuff is we're providing professional learning through like video conferencing, like Zoom. We use other ones within our district too, but like we're trying to have quick snippet, very just webinars where teachers get to talk to each other and be able to put ideas forward. But we're also like using those opportunities and these authentic moments to create professional learning for educators and showcase kind of like ways they can do stuff. So like one of our big pushes next week is Bulb, and is like, how do we showcase, hold on baby, how do we showcase that learning from home, and like what kinds of ideas people have for like things that could go in Bulb, and all of that's going to kind of happen through online learning. And it's a great opportunity for those downtimes when now our educators aren't going to have kids in front of them every minute, but they might be able to choose to learn a little more. And so we're offering those up throughout the day. So that's another opportunity for helping people get through learning new simple tools and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's great. And those, are you recording those and then putting in a place for teachers to access as well, and then creating kind of that live environment too?
Yes, in our LMS, and just so because all of our teachers are in one specific course in our LMS and professional learning course, which we're putting it in. But yeah, so that's what we're doing. Sorry, I just saw a question. I got distracted, so I just.
No, you're good. Yeah, I think Dan had asked, how hard is it to integrate Bulb with an LMS? So you guys have Schoology. I know we've integrated Bulb with Schoology. Just from a technical perspective, Bulb works with an LTI launch for any of those learning management systems. And then it's very easy to be able to turn on. It's a quick thing for the district to just add in that launch. And then for Bulb, it just takes us a minute to kind of flip on the switch. So that integration is great, and probably leads to that next question is kind of, Nancy, for those districts that have learning management systems, you guys have Schoology. It's, I think for teachers, it's always about clarity of like what I use my tools for, what is the purpose of each of them, and how do I use them well. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about you know, the advantages of having a learning management system and how you use that, and then how Bulb kind of works together with that?
Yeah, sure. And so I know that there's the availability of creating groups within Bulb, and like teachers having access to the groups, which we found very helpful. But we've also found efficiency is best. And so we found that Schoology has helped us with the efficiency part of access, because what we do, and Chris, I'm going to answer your question. Chris, actually, if it's the Chris I know, is from our school district, so I can understand where that question's coming up. But what we suggest to educators as they're working through Bulb is to create assignments. Oh, can you hear my kids? I'm sorry. Is to create assignments within Schoology and have the learners attach the link straight to the collection or the page that they're working on. And it gives, in Schoology, it gives them a list, like teachers can go in, click the link, and it opens up that specific page or that specific collection instead of having to go through the group and kind of surf through. Yep. And it's creating an efficiency of being able to kind of, in the way Schoology assignments work is, sorry, I ADD. I'm not going to look at that chat. I'm going to answer the question. But so what we did with assignments is we've kind of created that workflow of put your link in there, and then that gives the educator the opportunity to attach a rubric to it and be able to look through what they're seeing and look through their process of learning and be able to click on the rubric as they go along, which is really helpful. And it's just added efficiency to being able to access the different pieces that are being asked to be turned in at specific times.
Yeah, I always think about learning management systems and focused on that word management. So your Google Classrooms and your Schoologies and Canvas and stuff, like they're specifically built for the management side, like assigning assignments and tracking like who turns it in, and having, and I know a lot of them sometimes have even more kind of skill features to them, but at the core, it's really about the management side of it. And I think for those districts, we might have some on the call today that don't have a learning management system. Bulb isn't a learning management system, but there are some tools that help create some nice teacher-student workflows, as Nancy was mentioning. There's some groups and some ability to share and allow teachers to be able to access stuff. But if you do have a learning management system, I think the management side of like setting the assignments and sending out the links makes sense for utilizing your learning management system that way. And then Bulb is that place where it's like your work comes together. It's that creation place. You get to put your videos and your text and your audio and all of that in one place. And for teachers, I know like my husband's a high school teacher, and he's been, you know, feverishly looking for different resources like video clips and articles and different things to teach different pieces that he has in his curriculum. And, you know, putting those together in a Bulb page for some teachers works really nicely. It creates this very designed platform where I can have a video and then my questions I want them to think about while they're watching that video, and then right on that same page is like the embedded article that they're reading, and you can create those into templates and things like that. And then you can take that link and post it into Schoology and kind of manage it that way. Or if you don't have that learning management system, you can leave that in Bulb and kind of use those Bulb groups. So from my experience with teachers, I've seen that kind of from a good differentiation of purpose that way.
Yeah, I like what you said about the ability, like Schoology is like the place where you manage the learning. And like for me, like Bulb is the place where you can see the learning. And if that makes any sense. So like in our workflow, you would, oh my gosh, I'm so, hey, Brayden.
Okay, my son just walked in too, out.
Yeah, hey, Brayden. I'm gonna have to get up to go take care of that. Sorry. Okay. But I would say like for us with any learning management system, like it's the space to put the template for them to get to the link. It's a space for them to turn it back in when they're done. But like their learning happens not only in Bulb, but Bulb is like a way to track and show the growth of my learning and be able to put things together. And then Schoology or Canvas or wherever would be the place where I'm going to manage as an educator, being able to see the learning and kind of, you know, assess it and be able to kind of see where our kids are and that kind of thing. So that's kind of how I see those two working together.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part, like seeing that growth. You know, this is every day right now is just kind of a new adventure. And so if they start to kind of put those pieces of evidence and create that all in bold, once we start to look back, and talked about that a little bit earlier, like they're going to be able to see, hey, I actually have done some learning. Not only are we going to be able to prove that to the community and the state that, you know, our remote learning plans are working, but that they're going to, parents and students themselves and their teachers are going to be able to see all their stuff in one place in a very visual way. And I think that's so key. Well, they'll be able to really track that growth and learning, and that's so important. So
especially like if we don't, I'm not saying we aren't, but if we don't finish the school year out and we're doing everything online, the importance of having that tracked, so the teachers for next year, when they're looking at them and kind of seeing where they ended up, they'll be able to see that very clearly through their story. You know, it's just, it's important to show that growth, and not just like, hey, I finished this math worksheet, but like, what was the thinking behind that? Or, you know, being able to reflect on the learning and what was tough for them, because even if they just did a video response of what was hard for them, can only help the next educator, or however that ends up working out.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And please feel free to post any additional questions as we're getting ready to kind of wrap up the webinar. And, you know, I'm just kind of smiling as Emma and then my son was coming in. And I think pretty much I would assume that everyone on this call is just like all the rest of the families, where, you know, distractions are where it's going to be at, and helping our teachers understand that they're also going to be, you know, connecting with students who are having a lot of distractions in the home, or even have their own distractions, and that trying to kind of navigate that world, and just being a little bit more forgiving, and just recognizing that we're kind of all in the same boat. A lot of us in confined spaces with a lot of people. A lot of people.
Talk about SEL education here, and being able to spend some time, you know, putting together templates that helps them reflect through just even how this feels and stuff like that. And giving a parents, you were asking about like the homeschooling part, like, wouldn't it be amazing if there were templates and building things that like parents could, it gives them like questions that they can ask their kids to really kind of get a feel of where they're feeling with this. And maybe I wouldn't know how to do that, but you have experts out there that have really great questions that you could put together and have a reflection, and be able to, as a parent, kind of see where they're, how they are, where they're feeling, and what you can do to help them, you know, like, and just sometimes, like for me, it just takes asking Braden like how he's feeling, and then being like completely shocked, like not even thinking that that's how he's feeling. So we've been talking a lot about social emotional during all of this, and like, how do we support our kids? And reflection is such a big piece of, you know, like connecting the parents to the kids. And sometimes kids don't know how to say what they're thinking, but when they're asked questions, they can really kind of open up a little bit. So
yeah, and that, yeah, as you were saying before too, that doesn't have to just be through writing. I mean, writing is great, and you can use these prompts, but those responses can be recording audio or video. And so sometimes students might respond and be more open based on different platforms in terms of that. And so I think that's some great advantages.
You just
okay, so I have
okay, sorry. I was gonna say, you just brought up such a great point here. Like for our special needs learners, like, okay, so my son is dyslexic, and to write is like stabbing him in the pencil with an eye, or eye with the pencil, right? Like to be able to give him those pieces of bulb where all he has to do is hit record my voice and can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. He would love that. And then not only am I not going to get, I like carrots, period, I don't like broccoli, period, because that's easy to write, I'm actually going to hear what he's thinking. And like that bulb brings that in so easily. And if kids like to write, they can write. If they like to talk, they can talk. If they like to see their face, they can do that. Like that you brought up a really good point. Sorry, I just wanted to say that because I was just thinking about how my journal and the way Braden is going to be able to track his learning through all of this, for me, is going to be a lot of audio and video, because he is dyslexic, and being able to have those opportunities of choice and sharing that with parents is a big deal.
Yeah, I think that's great. And letting parents know that, you know, writing is not the only way that you can respond to things, and that there's value in that voice in so many different ways. Okay, so we're going to wrap up, but I have a tough question for you. So actually my husband asked this question because I was saying, all right, what are you going to ask Nancy? What would you want to hear? Like, what is, as a high school teacher, what is your biggest fear right now? And so for him, he works at a school where it's sometimes hard to get kids to even show up for class. And so his question is like, is there like a few things that I can do to try to keep my students engaged, you know, even when they're not maybe self-motivated to do it, especially when they're at home. And so he just has that challenging population. And so he's like, what can I do? What are some, like, do you have any cool ideas or tips to kind of help keep kids engaged?
Well, it's funny you would say that because, again, I've been thinking about how I'm going to support Braden because he's kind of picky about like what he likes and doesn't like. And I'm wondering if like a passion project wouldn't be amazing, because right now they have more time to kind of dive into something that maybe they didn't have time to do that they really like, right? Like it could be, oh my gosh, now I have time to get out on my front porch or my front driveway and practice basketball, and I'm super good at it, but I have to go to school for 8 hours a day and I don't have time to do that. Well, now you have time to budget your learning with what you want to do when you want to do it, instead of having to go from 8 to 4. Like, what if there was some way that every kid could choose a passion project, and then no matter what it is, they just have to showcase how they're learning, whatever it is, you know, like maybe it's the piano, maybe it's, I want to learn how to play or build some sort of, you know, app or something like that, where they wouldn't have had the time that they're being gifted in a sense right now. Like, I know they're still going to have to work and I know they're still going to have learning, but they have this opportunity to learn when they best learn. Like maybe they're not learning at 4 or from 3:30 to 4 with math. Like maybe they're going to do that at 7 o'clock at night because that's when their brain wakes up, you know, or something. I think that if for the kiddos that aren't interested, or you feel like it's a struggle to get interested, I would try and pull them in through something that they are interested in. Yeah. And then that they really are just showing their growth based on what they want to do. Like Braden's will probably be Legos, right? And so like if he can show his learning that he's learned something different, or he's learned to build on his own and not just through like the how-tos, and that he can document that learning, who wouldn't be passionate about showing how you've learned something that you're passionate about? Like,
I think that's a fabulous idea. And I know a bunch of our schools kind of incorporate passion projects already. So why not maybe take this opportunity? There's templates out there. I was just thinking, Caden, my son, actually just finished a passion project about movie making. And he has that documented in Bulb. And so we'll make sure we get that up too. Wow. There's some great steps in the process of what components would come up with a passion project, and some things that they can do, and some fun things that they can do with, you know, some green screens and some tools that they really want to explore, some kind of different digital tools, and kind of take and run with it as well. So I think that's really great advice, especially now when teachers are looking at how am I going to teach new content and all of that. Well, maybe that's a little of that, but then also giving that student choice voice in that passion project.
And even like if you're looking at high school, like even like if they're starting to think about what they want to do when they grow up, like maybe there's some opportunity for really diving into and finding resources around what they want to do, what they need to do to learn to be that person. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, being able to kind of get themselves situated. I think the greatest thing about portfolios is it should be about you. And I think sometimes they can get it lost in like, oh, the teacher's telling me to do this and I'm having to put this together because I don't know why math is authentic. I mean, I know it is, I do, but like a kid might be thinking that. But if you're trying to grasp them to track their learning and their growth, which is such a skill, doing it through something that they are passionate about and being able to show their own thing is so powerful. And I'm telling you, we're in a place where we have the opportunity to do some things that we've been talking about for years. And it's just, yeah. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to end it, because that's really what we are, is there's some opportunities here where we have the time, whether it's teachers learning tools digitally and and working on some new things, skills, and some students being able to do some things that they might not be able to do in our tight structured, heavy curriculum, you know, requirements that we have right now, and to be able to give them some freedom to really be learners of themselves and kind of own that learning. So I love that. Thank you all for attending. Nancy, you are wonderful. I always love chatting with you. Hopefully you guys got some stuff out of our webinar and some great ideas. We'll stay on for a couple more minutes. If you guys want to chat us any other questions, feel free to answer those, or you can reach out to us. We'll post, I'll post our emails in here. So feel free to email us and ask us questions. And let me do that right now.
I can, okay.
I got it, I think so. I can type without mistakes. And then you can always go to bulbapp.com, and we have a resource page on there where we'll post that Nancy and I talked about, along with some other resources. And
you missed an L. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Thanks. I told you I was going to mistake trying to talk and type at the same time. And so we'll have those resources on there. You can sign up for a Bulb account. And I think a lot of you guys already know, but Bulb is actually offering Bulb for free for the rest of the school year. So if you guys don't have Bulb yet and you really think that this might be a tool to help you with your remote learning needs, you can reach out to us at help@bulbapp.com and ask your inquiries, and we can kind of get you set up really quickly. So please feel free to reach out to us if you have interest in that. Thank you guys so much for your time. Nancy, thanks so much.
I loved it. It was good to see you. I'm not leaving, but it was good to see you.
It was good. And good luck to you. I know your team, you were saying you guys are running tons of different things and planning and doing all that to support your teachers. And you guys are always so great about sharing stuff. So we appreciate it. And you just reminded me, happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. I don't know if everyone's going out to celebrate tonight, but we can celebrate at home with our green, right?
Yes, say Happy Patrick's Day.
Happy Patrick's Day.
That's the way to end it. All right. Thanks so much. Take care.